I'm Caitlin Glassing. I'm here for the second vlog for Tecate, aka Tater. And I love doing these vlogs because it's a chance to really think through our training process. So hopefully you'll get a little insight into the training that Dan and I do here. You'll get to know the horses a little bit better. And also, unfortunately, you're going to get a really deep dive into how my brain works. And you'll find that I love a list. I love being organized in thought, if not ever in reality. So in thinking about how I was going to talk about our backing process for all of these young horses, naturally I came up with a list. And so it starts with a theme. The list has a theme. And the theme, I think, for us for backing the young horse is that it doesn't exist in a bubble. So what I mean by that is, like, it's not like we put on cowboy hats and back all these young horses and then put on our, upper level rider caps and go out and do dressage and show jumping. For us, the backing process is about starting to create a single thread that's hopefully going to exist throughout the horse's riding career. And that's from age 3 to 30. Or across disciplines, so like from dressage to show jumping to cross country. We're trying to create a way to communicate with the horses that's going to exist more or less throughout their whole career. So that's kind of the theme. We're creating a thread. This is just the starting point, but it's not something that changes as the horse gets older. And then I came up with 3 kind of responsibilities I think that we have when we're working with the young horses. So the first is to have a clear and present mindset. The second is to control our variables. And the third is to get our tools in place. And I thought Tater was probably the best one to talk about that third one with. So Tater is the only boy, 4-year-old, that we have. He's the only gelding. The rest are all mares. And he waves that flag with so much pride. He is such a boy. Like he would have little, pig pin stink lines coming off of him all the time. Like he's rough and tumble, class clown. A real dude. So when we started working with him, he kind of carried that same, real boy, real dude mentality over to it. So the first time you sit on him, he was kind of like, it's fine. I don't care. You're up there. No worries. We could have moved a TV into his stall and just made him a sofa. He didn't care at all. So you're like, okay, great. He's backed. No, not really. And actually, I find horses like him to be the harder ones to work with as young horses. They get a little bit easier once they get older because a horse like him that's a little cold to the rider or a little tuned out to the rider, you can be having a bad day, he won't notice. But I think to start with, as young horses, I find them a little bit more difficult because he doesn't really give you anything to react to. So it's really easy when we started working with him to think, okay, well, he's kind of doing what I'm asking him to do, and he's more or less happy about me being on his back. But that's not really the goal of the backing process. It's to get tools in place. So when I talk about tools, what do I mean? The first tool I think of is being passive, and that's just our body. We're talking to the horse with our body, whether we mean to or not, and that's on us as riders to always be aware of. But the next 2 tools would be our leg and our hand. And for Tater, when you think about putting your leg on, he was always very happy to go for, to piddle off, I would say, from the leg. And he was always very happy to kind of come back to a stop when you touched his mouth because he was a little bit lazy anyways. But that's not really the correct reaction to the aids. So when we talk about our leg, throughout the horse's career, leg always has to mean give me energy that I can use. And so that means push from behind that sends the horse's power through their whole body out to the bridle, and creates rhythm. And so when you're working with a horse like Tater that's a little bit off the rider, you put your leg on and he kind of goes, he's like, okay, I'll go, I'll trot off. But is it actually giving you energy? Is it giving you push through his whole body? Or is he just staying that little bit behind the rider? So that's something that I try to be really aware of when I'm working with him, because he'll very happily, I call it, he Gandhis you. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going. And it's like, but are you really going? Are you really doing this in the correct way? And then our hand, I always like to think of it as a gathering point for energy, and that's helpful to remind ourselves constantly that the hand isn't actually an emergency braking device. Although to start with, you want that point to be a full stop. And so same thing, I could probably go through Tater's entire 4-year-old year riding him around at home and just think, okay, stop, and he'd pull up and, you know, be kind of happy to be done. But has he ever actually let me take his mouth and bring that point to a full stop? So making sure that even though he was very easy to sit on, that we're not happy with just saying, okay, I'm sitting on a horse. This is a backed young horse. Not really. We need to be getting our tools in place. And so for Tater, we want to make sure that he's having this correct reaction to the aids so that when we get into a situation where we're taking him off the property for the first time, we're starting to introduce him to jumps or, you know, hacking out, things that would scare him, we have a way to talk to him about it. Or another way to think of it is it's very natural for a horse when you go to leave their buddies, leave the barn, for them to want to stay. They're herd animals. And it's also very natural that when you're out hacking, if a deer jumps out in front of you, the horse is going to turn and run because they're flight animals. So those are all really normal reactions, and we want to make sure that we have a way to talk him through that. So, you know, for Tater, because he's so quiet and so, you know, kind of has that cheeky, gonna hang back attitude, it would be really easy to go through the backing process without ever really making sure we had a way to talk him through these situations. So that was the main goal with backing him. And it's true across all different types of horses, but you'll see as we go through the videos and talk about the other horses we have in the barn, it differs how hard or easy it is to train the correct reaction to the aids depending on the horse's natural personality. And what we're trying to do is not change who Tater is. Like I said, as an older horse, it'll probably be the easiest one to ride because he'll take a miss all day long. He won't care if his rider is a little bit having a bad day. But to start with, as a young horse, he doesn't give you something to react to. He doesn't give you something to ride against. So it's our job to make sure that even though he's kind of got this laid back boy attitude, to make sure that he's really true and correct in his reaction to the aids so that we can continue progressing with him. So that's our little update on Tater, and I hope you guys are enjoying a little insight into the training process and a little insight into who he is as an individual, and we will keep you posted. And as always, like I said, this is sort of a exploration of my thinking style, so if anything I say doesn't make sense, please feel free to reach out to us. We love talking about training these horses. We love answering questions, so always feel free to reach out, and we look forward to keeping you posted with this progress.